Most people wake up every day carrying a silent weight. It's not visible, but it's heavy. It's the weight of knowing they could be more, do more, become more, yet somehow they keep repeating the same days with different dates. They don't lack potential. They don't lack intelligence. What they lack is a decision powerful enough to interrupt the pattern. Life has a strange way of giving us exactly what we tolerate, not what we want, not what we hope for, but what we accept. And over time, acceptance turns into habit, habit turns into identity, and identity turns into destiny. The danger is not failure. The danger is settling into a version of yourself that no longer fits who you are meant to become. There comes a moment in every life when excuses grow tired and comfort feels empty. A moment when you realize that waiting has cost you more than trying ever could. That moment is not dramatic. It doesn't arrive with noise or applause. It arrives quietly, often in reflection, when you finally admit that change will not come from outside. Today is not about fixing your life. It's about rebuilding yourself, the thinker, the decision maker, the architect behind every result you experience. Because when you rebuild that part, everything else must follow. Personal responsibility is the moment a person stops negotiating with reality and starts owning it. It is the decision to accept that your current results, financial, emotional, physical, and mental, are largely the outcome of your past choices, habits, and responses. This idea can feel uncomfortable because it removes the safety net of excuses, but it is also the most empowering realization a person can have. When you accept responsibility, you reclaim control. If you caused it, you can change it. If your decisions led you here, new decisions can lead you somewhere better. Many people delay rebuilding themselves because they believe life has treated them unfairly. They point to their background, their education, their parents, their economy, or their luck. While these factors influence a person, they do not define their future unless allowed to. Personal responsibility does not deny hardship. It simply refuses to surrender power to it. It says, "This may not be my fault, but it is my responsibility." That shift in thinking separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. Taking responsibility means recognizing that reactions matter as much as events. Two people can face the same setback, yet one becomes bitter while the other becomes better. The difference lies not in circumstances, but in choice. Responsibility trains the mind to ask productive questions instead of emotional ones. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" it asks, "What can I do next?" This mindset turns obstacles into instruction rather than punishment. When rebuilding yourself, responsibility begins with your daily habits. How you manage your time, what information you consume, the people you associate with, and how you speak to yourself all fall under your control. Even when options are limited, choices still exist. You may not control the weather, but you control whether you carry an umbrella. You may not control the economy, but you control your skills and work ethic. Responsibility focuses attention on the controllable, because progress only lies there. Personal responsibility also requires honesty. It demands that you stop pretending you don't know what needs to change. Most people already know what is holding them back. They know which habits weaken them, which distractions waste their time, and which fears keep them small. Responsibility means acknowledging these truths without self-hatred and choosing correction over comfort. Growth begins the moment excuses end. Another powerful aspect of responsibility is that it builds self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your identity. When you stop blaming others and start improving yourself, confidence grows naturally. Not the loud kind, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. This self-trust becomes the foundation for rebuilding every other area of life. Responsibility also changes how you view failure. Instead of seeing failure as proof of inadequacy, it becomes feedback. When you own your mistakes, you gain the ability to adjust your strategy. Avoiding responsibility keeps you repeating the same errors because nothing is examined. Ownership creates clarity, and clarity leads to improvement. A person who takes responsibility learns faster because they are not busy defending their ego. It is important to understand that responsibility is not self-blame. Blame looks backward and punishes. Responsibility looks forward and corrects. Blame weakens. Responsibility strengthens. One drains energy, the other directs it. When rebuilding yourself, the goal is not to feel guilty about the past, but to become capable in the present. Responsibility shifts focus from what happened to what can be done. As responsibility becomes a habit, discipline follows naturally. You no longer wait for motivation because you understand that action is your duty, not your mood. You begin to act even when it is uncomfortable, even when no one is watching, even when results are slow. This consistency compounds over time, shaping character and reshaping identity. Ultimately, personal responsibility is the doorway to freedom. The moment you stop handing your power to people, situations, or history, you step into authorship of your life. Rebuilding yourself begins there, not with dramatic change, but with a quiet decision to own today fully, to act deliberately, and to accept that your future will be shaped by the choices you make next. Changing from the inside out means understanding that the visible results of life are reflections of invisible processes. What a person experiences on the outside, income, relationships, health, and confidence, is shaped first by what they believe, think, and value internally. Many people attempt to rebuild themselves by chasing external change, assuming that a new job, a new environment, or new recognition will fix internal dissatisfaction. But without inner growth, outer improvements eventually collapse or lose their meaning. True rebuilding begins with reshaping the inner framework that determines behavior. At the core of inside-out change is identity. People act in alignment with who they believe they are. If someone sees themselves as undisciplined, unlucky, or unworthy, their actions will unconsciously confirm that belief. Rebuilding requires questioning these internal narratives and replacing them with deliberate, empowering ones. This does not mean pretending or denying reality, but choosing interpretations that support growth rather than limitation. When identity changes, behavior follows naturally because actions are expressions of belief. Thought patterns play a central role in this process. Every decision is preceded by a thought, and repeated thoughts become mental habits. A mind trained to focus on scarcity will notice obstacles everywhere, while a mind trained toward growth will notice opportunity even in difficulty. Inside-out change involves becoming aware of habitual thinking and learning to challenge it. This awareness alone creates space for better choices. You stop reacting automatically and begin responding intentionally. Emotions are also shaped internally, not externally. While events trigger emotional responses, interpretation determines intensity and duration. Two people can experience the same criticism. One collapses internally while the other extracts insight. Inside-out rebuilding means developing emotional maturity, the ability to feel without being controlled. This skill allows a person to stay calm under pressure, patient in uncertainty, and resilient during setbacks. Emotional stability strengthens decision-making and prevents impulsive behavior that undermines progress. Values serve as the compass for internal change. Many people drift because their values are unclear or borrowed from others. When values are undefined, priorities become inconsistent and effort is scattered. Rebuilding from within requires deciding what truly matters and aligning daily actions with those principles. When values are clear, discipline becomes easier because choices are guided by meaning rather than convenience. Life becomes intentional instead of reactive. Inside-out change also reshapes self-talk. The way a person speaks to themselves influences courage, persistence, and self-belief. Negative self-talk erodes confidence over time, even if external success is present. Rebuilding internally means replacing harsh internal dialogue with constructive guidance. This does not mean lowering standards, it means encouraging growth without cruelty. A strong inner voice becomes a source of resilience rather than sabotage. As internal changes take place, external habits begin to shift organically. A person who values growth will naturally read more, learn more, and seek better influences. A person who develops self-respect will raise standards in relationships and work. These changes appear gradual, but they are powerful because they are rooted in identity rather than force. Inside-out transformation lasts because it is aligned with who the person is becoming. Another important aspect of internal change is patience. External results often lag behind internal growth, leading many people to abandon the process prematurely. However, lasting success requires allowing time for internal adjustments to solidify. Just as roots grow underground before a tree becomes visible, inner development must be given time to support future outcomes. Trusting this process prevents discouragement and builds long-term consistency. Inside-out rebuilding also affects how a person relates to others. When internal confidence grows, validation from others becomes less necessary. This independence improves communication, boundaries, and leadership. Relationships become healthier because they are based on mutual respect rather than need or insecurity. A person who has rebuilt themselves internally contributes more value because they are not trying to extract worth from others. Ultimately, changing from the inside out means understanding that life improves when the thinker improves. External success without internal alignment leads to emptiness, while internal growth inevitably expresses itself outward. By shaping beliefs, thoughts, values, and emotional responses, a person reconstructs the internal engine that drives every result they experience. Discipline is the quiet force that shapes a life long after motivation has disappeared. Motivation is emotional. It rises when conditions feel favorable and fades when discomfort appears. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision that does not depend on mood, excitement, or inspiration. Rebuilding yourself requires understanding that feelings are unreliable leaders. If progress depended on motivation alone, consistency would be impossible. Discipline fills the gap between intention and action when enthusiasm is gone. Most people wait to feel ready before they act, but readiness is often the result of action, not the cause. Discipline reverses the order. You act first, and the feeling follows. When you consistently act despite resistance, your mind adapts, and what once felt difficult becomes normal. This is how discipline reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and begin seeing yourself as someone who does what must be done. Habits are built through discipline, not desire. A person may strongly desire change, but desire without structure leads nowhere. Discipline provides structure by turning goals into repeatable actions. Small, disciplined behaviors practiced daily carry more power than rare bursts of motivated effort. Over time, these behaviors accumulate, creating results that appear extraordinary to those who rely on emotion to guide them. Discipline also protects you from short-term thinking. Motivation often seeks comfort, quick rewards, and immediate relief. Discipline considers the long-term cost and benefit. It teaches delayed gratification, the ability to choose future gain over present ease. When rebuilding yourself, this skill is essential because growth often requires sacrifice before reward. Discipline allows you to stay committed even when results are invisible. Another key role of discipline is decision reduction. When actions are disciplined, fewer decisions are required. You no longer debate whether work, learn, or improve. The decision has already been made. This conserves mental energy and reduces internal conflict. Consistency replaces negotiation. Life becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. Discipline also strengthens self-trust. Each time you follow through on a commitment, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. This self-trust builds confidence that does not depend on external approval. Over time, disciplined individuals develop a calm assurance because they know their actions align with their intentions. This alignment is a powerful source of stability. Resistance is an inevitable part of discipline. The mind naturally seeks comfort and avoids strain. Discipline does not eliminate resistance, it acts in spite of it. Understanding this prevents discouragement. Feeling resistance does not mean something is wrong, it means growth is occurring. When you expect resistance, you stop interpreting discomfort as failure and begin treating it as part of the process. Discipline also teaches emotional regulation. Acting according to principle rather than impulse develops maturity. Instead of reacting to stress with avoidance or distraction, disciplined individuals respond with constructive action. This ability to act under pressure becomes invaluable during setbacks, when motivation is least available but discipline is most needed. Over time, discipline transforms into identity. What begins as effort eventually becomes character. You no longer force yourself to act, acting becomes who you are. This is the point where rebuilding becomes sustainable. Motivation may still appear, but it becomes a bonus rather than a requirement. Discipline does not demand perfection, it demands consistency. Missing a day does not erase progress, quitting does. Disciplined people focus on returning to the process rather than punishing themselves for imperfections. This mindset allows long-term momentum to continue despite occasional setbacks. In rebuilding yourself, discipline is the stabilizing force that ensures progress continues regardless of circumstances. It is not dramatic or exciting, but it is reliable. While motivation sparks the beginning, discipline carries the journey forward, shaping habits, strengthening character, and creating results that endure. Learning is the foundation of rebuilding because personal growth cannot exceed personal understanding. A person can only act as effectively as they think, and thinking improves when new ideas replace outdated ones. When life feels stagnant, it is often not effort that is lacking, but insight. Learning expands awareness, sharpens judgment, and reveals options that were previously invisible. To rebuild yourself, you must first rebuild the way you process information. Every result in life is preceded by a decision, and every decision is influenced by what you know. Limited knowledge leads to limited choices, even when effort is high. Learning introduces better distinctions, allowing you to see cause and effect more clearly. When you understand why things work the way they do, you stop relying on trial and error and begin acting with intention. This shift saves time, energy, and frustration. Learning is not restricted to formal education. It includes reading books, listening to experienced voices, observing patterns, and reflecting on outcomes. Those who rebuild effectively treat life itself as a classroom. They study success and failure with equal seriousness. They ask why something worked, not just whether it worked. This curiosity accelerates growth because lessons are extracted continuously rather than occasionally. Another critical aspect of learning is the upgrading of beliefs. Many beliefs are inherited, absorbed unconsciously, or formed during emotional moments rather than through evidence. Over time, these beliefs solidify into assumptions that quietly direct behavior. Learning challenges these assumptions. It invites questioning and refinement. When beliefs evolve, behavior evolves without force. This is why learning often produces change that feels natural rather than exhausting. Learning also strengthens adaptability. The world changes constantly, and rigid thinking quickly becomes a liability. Those who continue learning remain flexible, able to adjust strategies without losing momentum. This adaptability is essential when rebuilding because the process rarely follows a straight line. Learning allows you to pivot intelligently rather than react emotionally when plans need to change. One of the most overlooked benefits of learning is confidence. Confidence is not arrogance or certainty, it is familiarity. The more you understand a subject, the calmer you become when facing it. Learning reduces fear by replacing the unknown with clarity. As understanding grows, hesitation decreases. This inner stability allows you to take action even when outcomes are uncertain. Learning also refines communication. As you gain understanding, you express ideas more clearly and listen more effectively. This improves relationships, leadership, and collaboration. When rebuilding yourself, improved communication multiplies results because progress rarely happens in isolation. The ability to learn from others and share insights responsibly strengthens every area of life. Another powerful effect of learning is self-correction. When you are committed to learning, mistakes become feedback rather than failure. You analyze outcomes, adjust behavior, and improve steadily. This prevents stagnation because learning keeps you in a state of refinement. Instead of repeating the same errors, you evolve through them. Learning must be intentional to be effective. Passive exposure to information does not guarantee growth. Rebuilding requires selecting material that challenges current thinking rather than reinforcing comfort. It requires applying what is learned, testing ideas, and observing results. Application transforms information into wisdom. Without application, learning remains theoretical and ineffective. Over time, learning reshapes identity. You begin to see yourself as a capable thinker rather than a victim of circumstance. This identity shift empowers responsibility, discipline, and self-direction. Learning feeds all other areas of rebuilding because it strengthens the mind that drives behavior. When learning becomes a habit, growth becomes inevitable. Even small amounts of consistent learning compound into profound change. New ideas replace old limitations, better decisions replace poor ones, and clarity replaces confusion. Rebuilding yourself begins with a commitment to learn continuously, because a person who grows in understanding inevitably grows in results. Letting go of what no longer serves you is one of the most challenging aspects of rebuilding yourself because it requires separation from familiarity. Even when habits, beliefs, or environments are harmful, they often feel safe simply because they are known. People cling to what is familiar not because it works, but because it is comfortable. Rebuilding demands the courage to release patterns that once helped you survive but now prevent you from growing. Old beliefs are often the first weight that must be dropped. Many of these beliefs were formed during moments of limitation, fear, or incomplete understanding. Over time, they solidify into unquestioned truths that quietly govern behavior. A belief that once protected you may later restrict you. Letting go does not mean rejecting your past. It means recognizing that the thinking that carried you this far may not carry you forward. Growth requires updating internal frameworks as circumstances change. Habits are another area where letting go becomes essential. Habits shape daily life, often without conscious awareness. Some habits drain energy, dull ambition, and reinforce stagnation. Letting go of them is uncomfortable because habits provide structure, even when they are destructive. Removing a habit creates a temporary void, and many people rush to fill that void with something equally unhelpful. Rebuilding requires patience during this transition, allowing space for better habits to replace the old rather than rushing back to comfort. Letting go also applies to environments. The places you spend time and the people you surround yourself with influence your thinking more than you realize. Environments can normalize mediocrity or encourage growth. Holding on to environments that reinforce old identities makes rebuilding difficult. This does not require judgment or resentment toward others. It requires honesty. If an environment consistently pulls you backward, staying loyal to it becomes a form of self-betrayal. Emotional attachments are often the hardest to release. Some people hold on to resentment, guilt, or regret because these emotions feel justified. However, emotional weight distorts perception and drains focus. Letting go does not mean denying emotions. It means refusing to let them dictate your future. Rebuilding requires emotional release so that energy can be redirected toward constructive action rather than internal conflict. Another subtle form of attachment is attachment to identity. People often define themselves by past roles, mistakes, or achievements. While identity provides stability, clinging to outdated versions of yourself restricts growth. Letting go of identity allows reinvention. This can feel disorienting because identity answers the question of who you are. Rebuilding involves allowing that answer to evolve rather than forcing yourself to live according to a past definition. Letting go also requires accepting uncertainty. When you release what is familiar, the future becomes unclear. Many people prefer predictable dissatisfaction over uncertain growth. Rebuilding asks you to tolerate ambiguity without retreating. This tolerance strengthens resilience and expands capacity. Over time, uncertainty becomes less threatening as confidence grows in your ability to adapt. There is also a need to let go of unrealistic expectations. Some people hold on to timelines, comparisons, or imagined outcomes that create unnecessary pressure. Rebuilding is rarely linear, and clinging to rigid expectations leads to frustration. Letting go allows you to focus on progress rather than perfection. It creates mental flexibility and reduces emotional friction. Importantly, letting go is an active process, not a single decision. It requires repeated choice. Old habits and beliefs often attempt to return, especially during stress. Awareness and intention are needed to maintain release. Each time you choose differently, you weaken the hold of the past and strengthen your commitment to growth. As you let go, space is created for new behaviors, perspectives, and relationships. This space is essential for rebuilding because growth requires room to expand. Holding on to too much leaves no capacity for improvement. Letting go is not loss, it is preparation. It clears the foundation so that what comes next can stand stronger, cleaner, and more aligned with who you are becoming. Daily progress is often underestimated because it feels insignificant in the moment. People tend to look for dramatic breakthroughs, believing that transformation requires large, visible actions. In reality, rebuilding yourself happens through small improvements practiced consistently. These minor actions may seem too simple to matter, but their true power lies in repetition. What is done daily shapes identity, and identity determines long-term outcomes. Small improvements reduce resistance. Large goals can feel overwhelming and trigger avoidance, while small steps feel manageable. When the mind perceives an action as achievable, it is more likely to follow through. This consistency builds momentum, and momentum makes continuation easier. Each small action lowers the barrier for the next one, creating a chain reaction that gradually accelerates progress. Daily progress also builds trust in the process. When you commit to small actions, you experience frequent wins. These wins reinforce confidence and reduce doubt. Instead of waiting months for proof that change is working, you receive daily evidence through completed actions. This feedback loop strengthens commitment and makes rebuilding feel sustainable rather than exhausting. Another important aspect of daily progress is compounding. Just as money grows through interest, effort grows through accumulation. A small improvement repeated over weeks and months produces results that appear disproportionate to the initial effort. Reading a few pages a day leads to deep knowledge over time. Practicing a skill briefly each day leads to mastery. The results seem sudden only to those who did not witness the consistency behind them. Daily progress also reduces the emotional burden of perfection. When focus shifts to showing up rather than achieving flawless outcomes, pressure decreases. Rebuilding becomes about continuity, not performance. This mindset allows you to continue even on difficult days. Progress is measured by participation, not intensity. This keeps momentum alive during periods of low energy or uncertainty. Consistency also strengthens discipline. Each day you choose to act, you reinforce the habit of action. Over time, this becomes automatic. The effort required to start decreases because the behavior is no longer debated. Daily progress trains the mind to value process over comfort. This training reshapes how you approach challenges, making persistence a default response. Another benefit of daily progress is adaptability. Small actions allow for frequent adjustment. When changes are incremental, feedback is immediate. You can refine your approach without significant loss. Large, Infrequent efforts make correction costly and discouraging. Daily progress keeps you engaged in continuous improvement rather than occasional overhaul. Daily improvement also accumulates psychologically. Each small success strengthens self-belief. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through. This identity shift is crucial in rebuilding because behavior aligns with self-perception. When you identify as consistent, consistency becomes natural. Importantly, daily progress creates stability. Life is unpredictable, but daily routines anchor behavior. Even when circumstances fluctuate, small habits provide structure. This stability reduces stress and prevents regression during challenging times. Rebuilding is not derailed by chaos when daily actions remain intact. There is also a humility in daily progress. It requires patience and trust. The absence of immediate rewards tests commitment. Those who persist learn to value effort without applause. This internal validation strengthens resilience and reduces dependence on external recognition. Daily progress also guards against burnout. Large, sporadic pushes often lead to exhaustion and withdrawal. Small, consistent efforts are sustainable. They allow recovery while maintaining momentum. This balance makes long-term growth possible without sacrificing well-being. Over time, daily progress reshapes life quietly but profoundly. What once felt like effort becomes routine. What once seemed impossible becomes familiar. The transformation is not marked by a single moment but by a pattern of choices repeated faithfully. Rebuilding yourself is not about doing everything at once. It is about doing something worthwhile every day and allowing time to magnify its impact. As we come to the close, remember this: rebuilding yourself is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong commitment. It begins with responsibility, grows through discipline, is strengthened by learning, and is sustained by daily progress. You do not need to be perfect to move forward. You only need to be intentional. Every small choice you make either reinforces the past or builds the future. Choose wisely, because your choices shape the person you become. You are not behind, you are not broken, and you are not out of time. You are simply in the process of becoming. Let go of what no longer serves you, invest in what strengthens you, and trust that consistent effort will always reveal results. The power to rebuild has always been in your hands, waiting for you to use it. I wish you clarity in your decisions, courage in your actions, and patience in your journey. May you continue to grow, learn, and rise beyond your limits. Good luck in rebuilding the best version of yourself, and thank you for your time and attention.